Hello, everybody, and welcome to the What is Smart podcast. My name is Garrett Wilhelm, and this podcast is brought to you by the Gardens Foundation, dedicated to the research it actually takes to change the way kids experience education. Today, we have an amazing guest on the podcast, someone that I've spoke to before on a previous podcast. His name is Tom Coyle. He's the founder of Adventures in Leadership, a program, from my understanding, that takes, what's the age group, Tom? Middle school?
So we have cohorts for K to 4, 5th through 8th, and then 9th to 12th.
9th through 12th, awesome. And just an amazing program that teaches survival skills, leadership, obviously, and other soft skills, which is why I was amazed and excited to see that you were interested in doing the podcast, because I definitely would love your perspective on the big question, Tom. And mind you, did I get all of the intro there? Is there anything else you wanted to slide into that intro?
Yeah, so actually one of the things that I started doing is, so like we kind of have the youth program as like the junior special forces program, we call that. And we look at like special forces, military units, that type of thing, where I spent a lot of time in the military and serving overseas, those types of things, is that, military units of all types, they have to be masters of the latest technology. But you learn the old school survival skill. They still teach how to navigate with a map and compass, but you learn that right now the military is trying to use how to use drones, that type of thing. So like what I've done with that kind of concept, and then I look at AI, and I did spend some time since we first spoke, working at Data Robot, an AI company, and I have another company, Science Cello, where we're doing stuff at a health tech company, going along with my cancer survivorship to help people optimize diet going through cancer treatment.
Wow.
And so when I look at that, I think, okay, now I was able to do this because between my West Point education, which, there were soft skills, there were social sciences, but there was hard sciences. So I actually have a Bachelor of Science because I had all these engineering and computer science classes, but it's in comparative politics, so sort of a subset of international affairs.
I remember talking about that. Yep.
And so that it made me comfortable to do this. So I was like, AI started becoming a thing, and where AI is, I know you've done some stuff with AI. This is like the early barnstorming era of aviation. There's no experts. People are just figuring this stuff out. And this is when it gets exciting, because now like flight training is very standardized. It's kind of methodical. It's boring. It's not Chuck Yeager jumping into a plane and let's see how fast I can go type of thing. So it's kind of an exciting time.
Yeah.
And I thought, how do I blend these concepts together? So we'll do things in the camp like say, okay, here's some materials. Now build a shelter. Okay, now we're going to ask ChatGPT, what kind of shelter can I build with this thing? Very
cool.
Or do we do something else, like we might say something like, and then you start learning about some of the downsides of shit. So I went to ChatGPT and said, hey, how do I build a fire with just materials around the house? Or just like, no, we can't, that's too dangerous. Bard did it, but ChatGPT. But then when I went back to ChatGPT and said, okay, we are we're operating in the spirit of Boy Scouts, that sort of thing. And basically, in that case, here's what you can do. So it's just kind of like, you start learning like how you can change your prompts and such to get the words you want, the things you want.
Critical thinking skills and prompt engineering. That's super interesting. Anyway, continue.
And then one of the things that we do is called the special reconnaissance mission. So this is like a thing where like the one kid will be out there with walkie-talkie and binoculars and describe what they're seeing. Then a few of the kids will be taking pen and paper, trying to sketch that thing out, which is kind of what we used to do in the military. The recon guys radioing back something, they're drawing a sketch map so we can actually understand what the objective looks like. But then you take this back, and one person's on DALL-E and one person on Midjourney, typing in the description to see, okay, what image does that create? And then, okay, you who actually saw it, let's come back and let's see what did the best in terms of capturing what you were seeing.
So you're basically taking all aspects of what you do, and there is some alignment here, and then trying to find that almost Venn diagram center point of how they all play together. And I just love the aspect of, and the juxtaposition of kids in the wild, on their phones on ChatGPT, walking them through how to build shelter with their hands. It's almost what we want to see when it comes to use of technology. Interesting.
And the first we do, I make them do it themselves first, because like the way I look at it, like it's funny, like now we've been around the planet as long as we've kind of seen things. Like I was going through math. The big thing was, should kids use calculators? And
Mm,
what I think we did in my school, which was pretty good, it's like, hey, these problems, no calculators. We want you to go through the struggle of doing the math. These
yep.
problems, you're going to do calculus because you should learn how to use this. And when computers became in the classroom, started using that type of stuff. And I think same thing with like writing. I mean, a lot of content I'll do. I mean, large language models have been a lifesaver for me in terms of kind of generate content. Especially, I'm really good at like kind of generating the big ideas I want to discuss, but it kind of fills in with some of the specifics. At the same time,
Hmm.
there's like the 5-paragraph essay you do through school. There is a lot of things you can get from resiliency and critical thinking to actually go through the struggle. But then, there's a space for that. There's also a space to use this technology to see how this can be useful for you. And one of the other kind of ways we did this thing, this is where I've taken adult clients, but it still kind of applies to what we're talking about. We go to Gettysburg, and I took some people to Gettysburg, go to these key leadership dilemmas of leader space. Then I had ChatGPT say, give me a leadership lesson of General Sickles, a Union commander. It accurately described everything General Sickles did, but then concluded
Wow.
with, because of his actions, the Union won the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, what's missing there is Sickles almost cost them the victory. He made a lot of stupid decisions that, if the Confederates had been a little bit smarter, they would have won the Battle of Gettysburg. He was using reckless decisions. And so, as I teach people to think about what the AI is doing, the AI is saying, oh, Sickles was Union, the Union won. Therefore, anything and everything this guy did must have contributed to the victory somehow. So the idea here, it kind of goes back to that thing you've probably heard a bit. It's not that AI is going to take your job, but the person using AI will take your job. And so you look at that fact, like me knowing the history and knowing the thing, I'm able to at least troubleshoot and see what the machine's on. But I would basically say, if to kind of a practical thing, if I was doing something on Sickles as a report, I could take the stuff that ChatGPT was accurate in, like these are all the actions it did, but then I would turn around and say, this almost cost the Union the victory. Fortunately, the Confederates were not able to exploit the things he did, and therefore the Union did end up winning. I can provide that context that the ChatGPT did not do. Not to say it couldn't provide that context down the road, but at least time now, that's the thing. That's why that human can kind of look at, well, hold on, what are you telling me here? It's not like using a GPS where like Waze says, go this way. Well, I don't want to go this way because I don't want to go to that part of town. Or, you know what, I've only got my route, like I'm going home, but I know I have to stop at the dry cleaner on the way home, so I can't get off that route because otherwise I'd miss the dry cleaner. So I just have to suck it up and deal with this traffic. And so you're just
Totally.
making decisions. And if they're going to have to then, so to me, this stuff is critical. I had a video of my son. I actually never did release it. Where like I took one of my old iPhones. The video was him. Look, Dad, with this AI, I can scan the Rubik's Cube and tell me how to solve it. So, okay, let's race in the Rubik's Cube. Okay, ready, set, go. I take the phone, I throw it across the room, and I'm just doing the cube. It's sort of like I got inspired by Starship Troopers, and the guy said, "Well, sir, we're just going to push buttons while we're throwing knives. So put your hand on the wall. If you disable the hand, you cannot push a button."
I know that scene. That's a great
and,
movie, by the way.
and the whole thing is you need both, and like technology will fail. I remember like my son was asking about this Russian satellite that can supposedly take out all these satellites of American. That was like the big thing that came out last week. So
We can
yeah,
do that.
we can do that too. But the thing is,
Mhm.
if both sides do it, and okay, right, I'm going back to learning how to read a map. And there's a lot of things maps can do. And I think I'm kind of jumping around a bit here, but that's how my mind works. Like because we're through this topic, people like I've never been tested for ADHD, but like I kind of can hit a lot of these things. It's because you're connectors. You can take these seemingly disparate things and make it all connect and make sense. And you kind of take it full circle. We're doing like with map reading, navigating by a map. So many things can be understood by a map. And if you look at like world conflict, why is this side doing this? Well, look at a map. The map kind of tells, oh yeah, I can see why that's kind of makes some sense. And there's Robert Kaplan has a book out. I'm going to butcher the title, but something along the lines of why geography still matters or something like that. It's like the whole map thing, like in this interconnected world where I can be having a conversation and be, you and I might as well be, I could be on the space station, right? You still have these conversations, but geography is still important. So learning geography, taking it back to what are things we should be learning, what are things that we should be learning the old ways of doing things, because there's sometimes it's just kind of cool. Like when people know I can navigate using the stars, like that, it's actually kind of cool. You can like look at the sky and just like, okay, that's where we're going, type of thing.
And there is a dystopian future that would, need those skills again. I think that's kind of to your point is if you look at AI, and yes, I do, have Ed Start and we build AI products for education. And in fact, like talking about the triple effect. I've got Ed Start, the foundation, and Creative Gardens. It's like one makes tools, the other researches those tools and their application within Creative Gardens and other school systems. So they all do play together, but I think what you pointed out is what we've come to the conclusion of with tools and AI. And I think collectively, interestingly enough, we all kind of went through this similar pattern of experiencing ChatGPT and going, oh my God, like I immediately was like, technology is way farther than I ever thought it would be. And even having some understanding of machine learning and how that works, we were kind of already ready to prepare products leveraging this tech. We just didn't think the tech was going to come so fast. But in that exploration, my initial thought was, oh my gosh, like AI, one is safe, two is has the ability to kind of personalize everybody's experience on its own, giving the learner agency. And then what we discovered, of course, is just like you said, you would get 3/4 great info and then a little bit of junk to fill in the blanks. That's, LLMs work kind of that way in prediction. But a human in that loop of the output and even input. So at the endpoints of the information can help to decipher something even more. I look at it as, again, any tool is going to fail at some point. So you have to look at that tool the same way. It's just a very powerful tool if you know how to use it. And it sounds to me, so let's go back, because I love your brain. I very much empathize with your brain and was diagnosed as an adult ADHD. But that's entrepreneurship, right? Like you look at and you go, those are the type of people that start businesses because we're crazy enough to do so. But let's go back, because I do want to ask you the title question, because it's important to me. It's important to understand what that perspective is from someone like you that runs a leadership program to a scientist that's doing, neuroscience right now on the brain. So I ask you, Tom, what is SMART to you?
It is being a master of the world around you as you need to function. And now to sort of unpack that a little bit. So when I was at West Point, Major Alfaro was telling us a story. He was my history professor there. And, he was talking about how this one guy, he took his car in, couldn't figure out what's going on. And the mechanic's like laughing at him. You're an idiot. You don't know what this is. And he goes, well, do you know how to field strip an M16 rifle and find a malfunction and that type of thing? Like, well, no, he couldn't do that. It's like, we have what is smart has a broad breadth of doing things. Like someone say, well, I'm smart. I'm MIT PhD. Great. I just dropped you into Brazil in the Amazon jungle. Like, do you feel very smart right now?
So true. Great way of putting it.
And yet that person who doesn't have formal education is the person who's going to save your life, who knows these little tricks that aren't the Amazon. So you take there's sticky leaves that if you break it open, it functions like a chem light. You like light a trail and mark your path.
It's bioluminescence. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I think recognizing this, and even like as we look at it, recognizing different paths to achieve a result. One thing about at least computer science now, like we'll see ChatGPT and other large language models might turn that profession on its head, as I've done a lot of coding just relying on these things, and then Discord chats to sort of fill in the blanks where I can't figure it out. But the thing is like it sort of created an egalitarian view of technology, because then you could have been that PhD from MIT and work at Facebook just as the person who just learned by watching YouTube videos, because you could demonstrate the skill and say, yeah, you didn't have the formal education, but you demonstrated the skill. And so it comes back to what skills you need that makes you happy. So you got to take it back to the point, not just what you need. What is smart is the skills you need to function in the world that make you happy and productive.
Amen.
You're on the table, you're feeling productive. And if you're someone who like, man, I like building things with my hands and that's what I do, then that's smart, knowing how to do that. If I love doing PhD level research, I like being in a science lab, and then I build my education around that, then that is. And then having some breadth and curiosity kind of straddle, because technology will always displace things, and sort of staying abreast of like, what does this do for me? What doesn't it do for me? And how do I function?
Yeah, and I think that's the great answer. And if you don't think I'm going to clip that, I'm definitely going to clip that, because that was what you tied in, which has not been tied into the previous conversations I've had, is happiness, is emotion, is the fact that, yes, very much so, smart is, Dr. Damian Bevel said on this podcast, smart is contextual and evolving. And I think you're saying the exact same thing, except applying it also to someone's happiness, because I think that's exponentially more important than almost looking at industry as what's required, right? Because I think the happiest people are not necessarily the richest people. And so what you're doing every day and how good you are, your proficiency, which is an interesting kind of angle to it, I think that's also what you're saying is happiness applied to the proficiency of the skill that brings you that happiness. That's smart, correct?
Correct. Well
Awesome.
said. Well
Yeah.
recap.
No, I needed to recap for myself and hopefully for the listeners. They find meaning in that, because I think that's spot on, depending on whether you, and the reason why trade work, right, is so undervalued in almost concept, but in monetary value, it's a great industry to get into. And we thankfully are starting to put importance to trade. And I saw this article that I shared out on Facebook recently that was a school system rewarding and acknowledging the students that were going right into work after high school as just as important as someone graduating into college, which for a kid like me, watching all my friends when that opportunity was not present for me, watching all my friends get up there and go into, Boston College or Clemson, and everybody's cheering. And then there's old Garrett that goes out the back door and, smokes cigarettes with his friends behind the van. That to me means a lot, because I think that's the future, at least for America, because that's acknowledged in other countries.
You kind of made me think one thing. I think one thing that I've had, you'll see where I'm going. This is a second, bear with me. But since this election, in 2016, 2015, I created this prediction system to sort of predict how elections might turn out. And one of the things was, I feel like most people, what even gave me the thing to think about this is I have friends of mine who turn wrenches at the Ford factory, and I got friends of mine who, one of my friends sold his business for, and he's now a billionaire. And so,
wow,
these types of different people, different things, different social classes, kind of keeps me grounded, but also appreciates what people bring to the table. So one of that thing is that empathy aspect and happiness, to appreciate that, respect someone else's happiness. They aren't less because their happiness is different than yours. And they augment what you do. At the same time with that, it's like this idea of having that, why my model was accurate. And I posted in September 2015, I said, you heard it here first. Like it or not, Trump's going to win the electoral vote and lose the popular vote 2 million votes. So I was like, this is crazy. This is going to happen. And I just looked at people, because in understanding where some of the people were coming from, there's been a lot of reasons in the media, but I bring this up is the core thing, which put him over the top, because he obviously had a certain contingent of crazy people, right? But it was those blue collar workers. And Michael Moore does a great job articulating this in the documentary Trumpland. As soon as he said, if Ford moves that factory to Mexico, I'm slapping a 4% tariff on those cars coming from Mexico into the United States, he became viewed as the champion of the blue collar worker. So a lot of people in media are saying, well, a lot of these people are this or that. But as Michael Moore articulated, 80% of the people who voted for Trump in Michigan voted for Obama twice. And so we start looking at motives of people, understanding what people are saying there. Like, oh, wait a minute. There's a difference here. And sometimes your election, the sequel that we're all look like we're facing, I'm sure a lot of us are just overjoyed, sarcasm, with our choices. Yay.
Yay.
We have all these smart people. This is what we got. Okay.
I know.
And so people are going to choices based on where they are in life and doing that. So like that ties into the empathy. Like someone is, and this is what I kind of look at. Part of this thing is bringing people together, because I look at the polarization in this country and realizing just because someone votes for a person does not make them the most evil thing on earth. And we often make this assumption that if you vote for this person, that means it's this, or this, it's that. You know,
or your values are X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean?
Without realizing why. And then when you have a conversation, I've had conversations with people who voted across the political spectrum. I have never met anybody, at least the people who sat down and talked to me, and said, "Oh, you're a lunatic and you make no sense," or "You're an evil person." Every person I met, I felt was a kind person. And what was really interesting, I got the opportunity to take this course with Hal Gregerson. His whole thing is like, how to ask better questions, and you brainstorm for questions to help get the end. He said, we get too quick into solution mode before we start really framing the issues in questions. And he'll appreciate this, just because of things that you're interested in. And what he talked about was this one woman, she brought a bunch of climate change people to West Virginia. And they were just attacking, and then she introduced him to a coal miner, and they're attacking this guy, like, oh, he doesn't care about the environment. Then she goes, "Hey, sir, why don't you tell the group about your kids?" Turns out him and his wife, who couldn't have kids, he adopted 5 kids who were born addicted. Their parents were all meth people like that, and they're all thinking, wow, none of us would do what he did. And that kindness he showed to take care for those kids and provide them a safe home and try to bring them up in this world. Something they would never, suddenly it's like they went past he's the evil coal miner, and they started looking at what could this community do to not destroy the livelihoods of people who live here, but also make some progress toward caring for the environment. They actually had that common ground because of that. And I wish I could remember that woman's name. It's in my notes from the class. But that was one of those things and part of the evangelization, when I bring people together, they may have different beliefs, ideas, you're working together on common problems, you start appreciating each other. And you have, like, at the school level, maybe someone is more of a jock, someone else is more of an academic, someone else is more of an artist, and you bring it. And I deliberately take the scenarios based on what people's strengths are, so that everyone has a chance to shine in the team environments. And they realize they have to use these, and then you see the importance of everybody to bring it all together, that we are a community. And, again, that my happiness and what I do might be different from your happiness, might be from someone else's happiness, but that work, whether you love sweeping the streets or you love, managing people, whatever it is you love doing, and it provides you happiness, worth, that type of thing, these are all valid. And some people have to do things because, like, my grandfather told me something about the Great Depression. He did jobs he didn't want to do because he had to put food on the table. And sometimes you just got to make those sacrifices. And sometimes we might look at someone and go, "Oh, why are they only doing that?" without understanding the story, or even they might like the thing we think is some lesser than thing, as opposed to appreciating what they bring to the table.
No, and as you were saying that, I was thinking of, because this is how my brain works, is you're explaining that, and how it'd be interesting to think about a school or even a program where you have, talking about proficiency, kind of as a metastructure, you're looking at kids working, from a very early age, let's say even middle school, because there is basic competency that needs to be known to teach things like logic. And like you said, to even go through the struggle of hardship helps us learn and grow. But I think at some point, imagining a school where the focus is proficiency on these skills that kids are interested in, and then they come together almost as an assessment, if you will, are presented, PBLs or project-based learning that require these different learner types to then come together and mesh, and that be the outcome, that be the proficiency. That, to me, excites me, because then you're preparing people for what the world looks like, what you ultimately, no matter what your job is, you're going to be thrusted into people with skill sets. And then the people that thrive are the ones that are able to recognize other skill sets. At least for me in my leadership tactics, I tell everybody, like, I don't want to hire people that are yes people. That's unimportant to me. I want people that are going to check me, that are going to challenge me, because that's going to help me grow. I know I'm not good at X, Y, Z, L, M, N, O, P, but I'm really good at A, B, and C. So if anybody else can fill in the letters, let's bring them in. And then the work, right? The actual application of your proficiency is this collective, collective collaboration, I guess is the word.
Yeah. And I love that because so many people, and you generally do that. And most people don't even think about that. They want people who are clones of them. And if they do think about it, they don't actually do it. They don't say, I want the diverse, I want the team of rivals, to use the Abraham Lincoln term, but then they actually
love it.
Exactly like them. And yet that comfort. And like Richard Branson, one of the things he always makes a point of, he brags, he is the dumbest person at his company. Because he continues on, if I know more about rocketry than the guy from NASA I poached to get me into space, I've hired the wrong guy.
Yeah, and I always go back to, I've mentioned this in conversations with others, but I love this quote from Socrates. The only reason I'm in the position I'm in is I'm the only one willing to say that I know nothing at all. And that's such a powerful, and I think of leadership in kind of a fox analogy. The leader of the pack of fox, or what's the plural of foxes? Foxi?
Foxes, I guess.
Yeah, foxes, but they lead from the back. Right? Because when you lead from the back, you're allowing the people in front of you to have vision, to explore, and you're guiding them on the basic things, the basic boundaries of, hey, if you go over near that bear, there's a good chance you're going to die, so stay away from that. However, if you're leading from the front, this kind of ego-driven leadership, and this is going to be a great pivot point, ego-driven leadership, you're blocking the view of everybody behind you, and you're just having everybody fall in line, which educationally even we've seen does not work. Sitting kids in rows, having them raise their hand, all of these systems were designed for factory work, and they worked really well, And so that being said, one of the things that I was really fascinated with, and we touched a little bit on it at the beginning, was your program Adventures in Leadership, because when we first talked for the Creative Gardens podcast, you were talking to me a lot about that. And I can only imagine over the past couple of years, one, during the pandemic, was that something, to me, it would be something that people were seeking. What's a small group that we can get together and get out, because the kids have been staring at iPads for forever and ever and ever. Has that business grown? What have you learned from that experience overall? I would love to know.
Yeah, so a couple things. So when the pandemic hit, it was really hard getting people to actually want to do that. They were kind of like, you knew there was interest, but there was fear, and we couldn't really strike the thing, right? So I did some stuff virtually with kids, and that's why I kind of started having the concept of filling this online content. Well, I would have challenges, but actually I did this fun thing. Hey, we're gonna make our own VR cardboard headset. So basically, what you would do is go to YouTube and download I had a list of videos where they have a split screen kind of concept. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm familiar. I even know I have them from back in the day, those little cardboard things.
And then we'll just make something out of a shoebox, and you've now made your own VR headset, and you can talk about VR. And then they would walk away, hey, here's your leadership challenge, or I want you to build a shelter out of some materials around the house and send a picture to me, type of thing. What really kind of happened was, and I want to take a moment right now because I want to talk about the different brain types the whole education system does not. The education system, and I think that I had good grades all through school, but where I had two pivotal teachers that helped me kind of navigate the storm, if you will. Mr. Dibb, my second grade teacher, I'd finish the math problems really early, and I'd start being disruptive because I'm bored, I'm done. He'd say, hey, Tommy, come here. Why don't you go to the playground and run around, see how many laps you can do before I call you back in? I'm like, exactly. Why can't we do that today? He's like, are you kidding me? If I did that today, I'd lose my job. But then I was able to do that. Mr. Johnson, third grade, I was able to stand up, and sit back and listen to the lecture and just kind of pace back and forth so I could listen, so I could stay grounded and listen. But again, you tell the modern teacher, hey, my kid just kind of pace around a little bit to absorb things. Oh wait, you want me to do what? That doesn't resonate. Think that different brain types. We recognize that in Adventure Leadership. And so one of my very first runnings, I had this really great kid. Now, according to his parents, he had difficulty making friends. He was ADHD, autistic. But what I started listening is that one of my other instructors kept saying, "Well, he's being a problem. He's being a problem." I didn't stop that. When you start saying it, the kid's going to overhear that, and that's what creates the division. Oh, the parents all say this person's a problem. This person must be a problem, and then that leads to all the other stuff. Instead of we're just not getting, we're not acknowledging it. And I wish I had. And he started making friends because we weren't singling him out. We weren't trying to stop the behavior. We're just working within the behavior. And one thing I wish I had a video and audio recording this, because I would do is like, I'd take their Gettysburg trip. I would play just the audio with him back and forth, answer some questions. I'd say, hey, what do you think of this person? And they say, oh, engaged, really good. But then I show the video, and he's standing behind the group, jumping up and down between the rocks, doing all this thing that was driving some of the adults nuts. Like, but the kids didn't seem to be bothered by that. We were bothered by that as adults, not me, but the other adults were. And they're the ones always trying to stop the behavior. But then the kids go, wait, what's going on over there? The kids just seem to instinctively know that maybe that's just something that somebody needs to do. They just kind of just see that. And no, they weren't trying to mimic the behavior because they're all trying to pay attention in their own way. It's like, I like the philosophy of venture leadership. It's how do we let people be their best selves to excel in the scenarios that we go through where I'm not telling them the solution. Like I don't say, we're going to learn to build a shelter. We're going to take this thing. I'm going to say, hey, build a shelter. Then I'm going to talk afterward. Here's some things you could have done better. Oh, I didn't like some little tricks that could have made things more efficiently, but let them struggle through it first as do their own learning process, learn how to work together as a team. And in fact, last year was pretty great. I said, guys, we're going to build a shelter. And gentlemen, there's all boys in this third class. In 40 minutes, it's supposed to rain. So you pass if we stay dry. Go.
I love it.
And just to kind of pick up that, so how it brought it back this past was the last summer, 2023. My kids go to St. Leo the Great in Fairfax, and I had this, like, it was like March. I should bring back convention leadership. Like, but it's March. People already got plans. Maybe I'll have to wait for 2024. And then I had donated an item for a school auction for parents for a one-day event in the woods. And the vice principal or the acting principal was saying, "Oh my, hey, what's this program?" They're talking. So this is April. Well, can you do a program here at St. Leo's? And so we advertised it in April. I filled 2 classes. And I've been starting to advertise now in January, but I got signups coming in there, and it's open to anyone in the area. It is hosted at St. Leo's, and we're taking some field trips this year. But I think now COVID has been, people are like, wow, we need to get people together because folks don't know how to socialize as much. They don't know how to like say what they want or articulate, work in teams. The screen time has been a thing, but like screens are reality. So how do you operate within the reality of screens, which I do some of that, but also, we don't go overboard. I did a kind of a funny little thing. I did a sleight of hand. So because we're doing some stuff with screens, I say, on breaks and prescribed things, you use your phones or whatever, but devices go away and it's put away. So the first day it's like, hey kids, put the device away. Okay, no, put the device away. Then they eventually put it away. Then what I did, one person was playing FIFA while I was talking. So I want to thank this young man for donating his phone. I did a sleight of hand, switched out his phone with my old phone, but he saw what I wanted. Did you know if your phone loses batteries, it's still useful in a survival situation? Watch this. I pry open my knife. Now look at here. You've got magnesium. What's magnesium good for? People go, oh, you can start fires quickly. Right. Magnesium is a great source of igniting a fire quickly. So look, there's a magnet here, so we can actually float a needle and figure out our direction. He's like almost in tears as I'm going through taking apart the phone piece by
You're like, and the hard drive we're gonna hold on to. No.
And then eventually then it came clean like there was, but the whole rest of the week, it went from put away devices, come on to put away.
Yeah.
It's done. Put away. And that time and place. And I think we as adults, like it's sometimes parents I think struggle with it. Can I tell them to put away, or what can I do with that, or when to use it? And it's not all bad. My big thing is, are you using the tech or is the tech using you? I think it's a double-edged sword.
And that's a little bit too. I need to clip that as well too. Anyway,
and so just sort of, and I'll just pause for you get. Sorry, I'm talking for a bit.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. Keep going.
And so we did things. We went spearfishing. The kids had to take knives, and like I'd have to have I keep my knives in my car. Then we go outside. I hand them up their knives, and we make the spears. We went spear fishing. One kid actually caught a small fish. We employ there'll be the ambiguous scenarios. I'm gonna throw a little thing at them. We'll say, hey, see this giant bucket of water? It's like this 5-gallon bucket of water. Listen very carefully what I'm saying. Take some water, go to the tree and back. And so one group's trying to take the bucket of water and carry the whole thing. Wait, they started to say, wait, he said some water. They grabbed some water with a water bottle and ran it back and forth because they realized I didn't say all the water, he said some water. So they kind of I throw little wrenches in there, or somebody's talking a lot, as I'm doing right now. I can sit there and say, hey, you're handicapped. You can only use hand and arm signals to talk. So that allows other people to kind of express their voice. So let me pause there for a second. I know you have a lot.
No, I think here's what I took from that. One is, what you're describing is how I see learning, right? It's not the outcome, it's the process. It's the process of whatever you're trying to attack at that point. But the other thing that really stuck out to me was that what you did with that phone was how kids need to be learning moving forward, which is, in my opinion, by feeling it. No direction by a parent. And I do some parent coaching on the side. And that's what I tell parents is you can say all day long what you want. You can try to put your boundaries out with words as much as possible. You can even say, hey, if your kids have, or your wife or whoever has a problem with you, you can say, hey, I'm working on it. But the reality is no one is going to truly learn from that experience without feeling what it feels like to have an outcome in their choice. In that case, him using his phone, you telling him to put his phone away, his teachers tell him, I'm sure, all the time to do the same thing. So it's become something he numbs out. But when you show him in an example that's safe, right, how that's going to feel, in this almost ludicrousy of like, here's what I'm going to do with your phone, and like smile while I do it. He learned from that experience. And there's something very much to say for that. Even talking about soft skills, I've done a lot of research in how we quantify soft skills. You can't be a 4 in empathy. That's ridiculous. It's so subjective that you're like, what? But what you can do is you can create a goal setting experience where, you quantify success by documenting examples or showings of empathy, grit, compassion in ways they maybe didn't before. So I love actually that aspect of how you manage devices in your leadership program. And as we because we are getting to the point of wrapping up here, and I can definitely talk to you for a long time because I think, one, we talked very early in the pandemic and you're still doing it, which is such a good thing. In regards to, preparing kids and really giving them skills that I think that they're lacking. Like you said, in school, we see it every day. We see, my kids at home have these scenarios that they discuss. Timmy said, Bobby said, and then whoever said, and I said, but did anybody talk about it? Oh no, this is on Snapchat. So all of this doesn't exist. It's like they're avoiding existence. And avoiding that kind of human relation, which worries me because regardless of technology's, effect on humanity, that's what makes us human and is connection, is people to people.
Yeah, and that Gary, that was well stated right there. And I'll tell you, I think part of that is if the machines replace lots of tasks, then that is what we have at the end of the day is our humanity. You used to be able to be a jerk, but you had the hard skills. Well, guess what? Now the machine does the hard skills for you. Now it's about leveraging people. What I kind of think about your remarks is I like to say as a leader, not how do I do something, but who knows how to do something. Bring that person to the team. And you in a real workforce, which we're not preparing people for, is someone like, hey, I'm going to need a graphics artist who helps me, or at least that has that mindset of what a graphic artist needs for my websites and that type of thing. I'm going to need someone who knows these. So I need some people skills who can be that closer in the sales pipeline to help me do that. So I need the researcher to validate the latest technology and stuff. So then you start bringing in there. We're not teaching people to operate in teams. And yes, there's a place for the individual work, but the school environment is about you doing your own thing, and you're cheating if you're working as a team. But then we're not preparing people for what life really is like. And it is about teamwork and you taking your strength with your strengths, minimizing the collective weaknesses and highlighting our strengths as a team.
That is perfectly, perfectly well said. I'm going to end it there because that right there, that little chunk is exactly right. We are opposite of where we need to be in so many aspects of our education system. And we know as adults that is true. It is categorically true. So thank you, Tom. We appreciate you joining the podcast. We can't wait. One of the things that we're looking to do is have a kind of large form summit podcast where we kind of have bigger conversations with all of these great brains. So we would love if you would join that podcast. And then, of course, anything that I can do in the future to help you, that would be awesome. Can you tell everybody where to find you and your program and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, talking to this conversation specifically, www.adventuresinleadership.com. And then there's
we'll put that up on the edited version, the actual website. So
have Junior Special Forces Camp. That's for the kids program. We do
very
things
cool.
for adults, so it's not just for the kids, but that's where our special emphasis is. And we'll have more stuff. Really excited about what we do there. And then obviously I have my health tech company, Sciencella, which those who want to keep track of how we're optimizing diet for cancer patients, we're doing that. Which again, to be able to have that flexibility to do the things I'm doing, it really does come down to having that breadth, following your interests, following what makes you happy, and then learning and knowing the skills that lead you to that path.
And knowing what skills you don't possess. I think that's the key, right? Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Tom, so much. We wish you the very best in your endeavors, and we'll hopefully talk to you very, very soon.
All right. Sounds good, Garrett.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.